Low prices for coal are helping it to compete more effectively with natural gas, particularly in the electric power sector. The decline in coal consumption globally began in 2015 and is showing signs of slowing down, and in some countries, the use of coal looks set to rise. The long-term trend is for coal demand to go on falling, for political reasons as much as anything else. But politics may also provide a boost to the coal industry in the short term. In his presidential campaign, President Trump made much of the decline of America's coal industry, which helped him to win key coal-producing states like Pennsylvania and Ohio. In office, he has announced measures to remove some of the environmental restrictions on coal burning and has withdrawn the US from the Paris Climate Agreement. Rick Perry, the US Secretary of Energy, is to examine what he believes is unfair competition posed by natural gas and renewables, and more is to be done to encourage the development of clean coal technology, involving carbon capture and storage from emissions, of course. There could also be a role for coal to replace some of the nuclear power capacity that is due to shut down between now and 2050. In another move to boost coal's contribution to the US economy, more exports are to be encouraged. Exports themselves have declined by 52% since their recent peak of just over 125 million tonnes to 60 million tonnes in 2016. One way this may be done is for the US to finance coal burning plants overseas, and the Treasury Department is currently working on plans to facilitate this. The main effect of President Trump's policies, however, will be in the US rather than in overseas export markets, since the use of coal globally is in long-term decline. Within the US itself, however, there are still problems confronting any large-scale revival in coal burning. The economics of deep mining for coal are deteriorating as costs rise. Meanwhile, many coal-fired power stations are likely to close because of their age and declining efficiency. Now, of course, some of these older plants are being retrofitted to burn natural gas, and there remains considerable opposition to coal on environmental grounds. And while President Trump's administration can improve the situation for coal at a federal level, his measures can of course be negated at the state level by planning and other restrictions on coal plants. That of course raises the question, therefore, if not in the US, then where? Well, half of the world's leading coal consuming countries are in Asia. In the largest of these, China, coal consumption is however falling, thanks to a policy of gas substitution and the closure of many of China's smaller mines. India, on the other hand, has increased both its production, its consumption, and intends to go on doing so. Coal has a major role to play in the government's plans to boost economic growth on the back of manufacturing, which in turn is built on the idea of abundance of cheap domestic energy. The long-term plan is for coal to be replaced in part by a rise in domestic gas production, plus more power from renewables. But for the next few years, any generation increase will have to be driven by coal. Elsewhere in Asia, new coal power stations are being built or planned. A 1 gigawatt plant was opened in Malaysia earlier this year, and there are even proposals for new coal power stations in Japan and South Korea. Although it has to be said that these are likely to replace older coal burning capacity, and the net effect for demand of coal will fall in both countries. Indonesia, the Philippines, Thailand and Bangladesh, on the other hand, may see their coal consumption rise. Another area of growth is the Middle East and North Africa, where new coal-fired generation is planned for the UAE, Egypt and Morocco. All these additions, however, must be set against the long-term decline in coal consumption elsewhere, and that looks set to continue.